Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. You know, every single website out there on the internet, whether we're talking about a super simple portfolio or a massive e-commerce platform, well, they all rely on the exact same basic foundations: structure, style, and logic. So today, our goal is to really unbox the complex mechanics of how the internet actually works. We are going to break down that barrier between you and the screen and take you right behind the scenes of web development.
To truly appreciate why we're talking about this, we have to look at the sheer scale of the digital universe. Right now, over 6.04 billion people are connected through the internet. That's literally more than half of our entire global population. And they're actively engaging in research, connection, education, and entertainment every single day. So with this rapidly increasing number of internet users, there's a massive, and I mean continuously growing demand for web development. Whether you're building a business, hiring a team, or honestly just kind of curious about the apps you use every day, understanding this digital universe is an absolutely essential modern superpower.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're taking a macro to micro journey today. First, unlocking the web. Then, front end, the user view. Followed by back end, behind the scenes. Next, we'll meet the web developers and finally wrap up with the website development process.
Starting with Section 1, Unlocking the Web, Core Concepts and Foundational Jargon.
So before we can actually build anything, we need to know the language of the internet. First up is the IP address. Think of an IP address as a unique string of numbers, essentially a digital fingerprint. Every single device and website connected to the internet needs one, just to distinguish itself from the billions of others out there. But let's be real, remembering long strings of numbers is pretty tough for humans. And that's exactly why we have the Domain Name System, or DNS. DNS acts a lot like the internet's phone book. It translates those intimidating IP numbers into the friendly, memorable domain names we actually type into our web browsers.
Next up is HTTP, or Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, HTTP is the essential translator of the web. It provides a really strict set of rules, a framework, basically, so that your computer, which is known as the client, and the remote server housing the website data can speak the exact same language. When you click a link, HTTP translates your request, grabs the code from the server, and translates it right back into the visible website on your screen. And ideally, it does all this before you lose patience and close the tab. Another absolutely key term here is CMS, which stands for Content Management System. A CMS is a web application that makes building websites so much easier. Tools you've probably heard of, like HubSpot CMS or WordPress, they provide the building blocks and templates so everyday users can create and manage web content without needing a computer science degree. It essentially handles a whole lot of that complex underlying structure for you.
So the crucial point is really understanding the split between the front end and the back end. Think of building a website exactly like building a house. The front end is the client side. That's the interior design, the paint, the layout, and the navigation that visitors see and interact with directly. The back end, on the other hand, is the server side. It's the massive digital infrastructure. It's the hidden plumbing, the concrete foundation, the servers, and the databases that make the entire house function, but it's completely hidden from the user's view. Moving right along to Section 2, Front End, the user view, structure, style, and interactivity.
Now, what's really interesting is that web browsers only understand a very specific holy trinity of programming languages. First up in that trinity is HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is the absolute backbone of a web page. Going back to our house analogy for a second, HTML provides the wooden frame. It creates the semantic structure of the site, organizing fundamental elements like your headings, paragraphs, images, and links into a proper logical layout.
Okay, so once we have our HTML structure in place, we apply CSS, or cascading style sheets. If HTML is the bone, well, CSS is the muscle. CSS is entirely responsible for the visual appearance of the site. It controls the colors, the typography, the fonts, and those clever responsive layouts that ensure the web page adjusts smoothly and looks fantastic whether you're viewing it on a massive desktop monitor or a tiny smartphone screen.
And finally, we have JavaScript. JavaScript is the dynamic language that brings all that static HTML and CSS to life. It adds the interactivity that actually responds to user actions. Without it, a website is really just a static digital poster. But with JavaScript, you get that super satisfying like button animation, or a shopping cart that updates instantly without you ever needing to refresh the page.
So to quickly summarize our front-end rule of three, HTML handles the structure, CSS manages the style, and JavaScript dictates the interactivity. These three core languages work perfectly together to create the final, polished user experience that you interact with every single time you open up a web browser.
All right, time to flip things around with Section 3. Back end, behind the scenes, servers, databases, and logic.
Leaving the browser behind, we're diving into the server-side plumbing. Now, while browsers are pretty strict and only understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, servers are incredibly versatile. They can be configured to process logic and talk to databases in quite a few different languages. Developers might use Python, which is known for its readability, or PHP, which heavily powers systems like WordPress. They might use Ruby, Java, C#, or even Node.js, which is awesome because it allows developers to actually run JavaScript on the server side.
Of course, a massive part of the backend is storing user data. I mean, if a website needs you to log in or it remembers that you left a pair of socks in your online shopping cart, it definitely needs a database. There are two main ways backends handle this. Relational databases store data in highly structured tables. Think rows and columns, using systems like MySQL. On the flip side, non-relational or NoSQL databases offer much more flexible, schemaless data storage using tools like MongoDB. And both are absolutely essential for powering the dynamic, personalized web applications we use today.
Which brings us to Section 4. Meet the web developers, the architects of the internet.
And this brilliantly illustrates who actually uses all these tools. These architects are in high demand right now, with employment expected to grow an impressive 7% by 2034. That's faster than most other tech careers. As they enter the field, they specialize across the different layers we just unboxed. Front-end developers focus purely on the UI, using our holy trinity of languages. Back-end developers wrangle servers and databases using Python or Java. Then you have full-stack developers. They possess the all-around knowledge to build both the client and server sides. We've also got web designers focusing heavily on the visuals using tools like Figma, and CMS developers customizing templates in systems like WordPress or HubSpot. Finally, Section 5, the website development process, from blueprint to launch. So, how does a project actually go from a simple idea to a live product on the internet? Well, here is the highly structured, practical 8-step roadmap. Before a single line of code is written, Step 1 is forming a plan, really identifying the audience and the goals. Step 2 is creating a wireframe. This is basically a visual blueprint of exactly where text and images will go on a page. Step 3 is drafting a sitemap, to map out the linking structure and the hierarchy of all the pages. And only after all that planning is complete do we hit Step 4, building the backend. This is where we set up the databases, the servers, and that whole data architecture we discussed earlier.
All right, let's see how this builds to the finish line. Step 5 is building the front end, using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to bring that wireframe vision to life for the user. Step 6 is an optional but super popular route, integrating a CMS to make future content management way easier for the team. Step 7 is acquiring a domain name and registering it via ICANN so users can actually find you. And finally, Step 8 is launch. But of course, not before doing some crucial final security checks, testing for any glitches, and optimizing for search engines.
And just like that, we've broken down the whole shebang. You now understand the jargon, the difference between the front and back end, the essential programming languages, and the step-by-step process of creating a website from scratch. You are officially equipped with the knowledge of how this massive digital universe operates. So my final question to you is this. You now know the languages of the web. What will you build?